Welcome, whoever you are, to Meg's Magical Mansion, a virtual guest house for spiritual wayfarers, a place where the ordinary becomes magical, where wisdom is yours for the asking, and where your higher nature is just a wish away. Thanks for joining us here today at Meg's Magical Mansion. We're still on our summer road trip 2024, and the road goes on forever and the party never ends. And today we are here outside Eugene, Oregon, and we're here with my beautiful, scrumptious parlor maid, Parfait.
Charmed.
And today we have a special guest for you. We have Logan Keister, and we've asked him to join us today because Logan knows a lot about mushrooms, fungi, and medicinal herbs and plants. And I know a lot of you who are witchy people out there do a lot of work with medicinal herbs, plants, fungi, mushrooms, so we found ourselves a little expert. Hey, Logan, tell us a little bit about how you got all into this stuff.
Sure. So yeah, my name's Logan Keister, and I've been a practicing clinical herbalist since around 2018, but I kind of got my start just growing up out here. You know, we're kind of in a very beautiful area in the coniferous forest of the Willamette Valley, and I kind of just grew up out in the woods. My parents would take us out foraging for wild mushrooms and for plants, and it kind of stemmed from an early age, just getting excited about being outside. And you know, at first it kind of started oh, it's a dorky family activity, just going out and foraging for mushrooms and stuff. But then as you get older, people are kind of oh, you know some of the mushrooms, you know some of the plants, that's kind of cool. And it kind of when you see other people are interested in what you're doing, you're kind of all right, maybe I should explore this further. And you know, I just kind of from there, you know, I went to college and I studied horticulture. I went to school for herbalism and botany. I've just taken a lot of different stuff and really stuck with the mushroom path pretty hard throughout my journeys in education. So it's just something that's always kind of been there with me, and I was always growing and always learning.
And you have some great mushrooms with you today.
Yeah.
What did you bring to show us?
Oh, I got a few different ones. So I just grabbed what was in my house, you know, what I had going around.
Just laying around.
Yeah,
I just have mushrooms laying around my house.
Yeah. So here we have a beautiful Agarikon mushroom. This is one that you only find in old growth forests, so it's ones that are a little more difficult to find. This one's actually gifted to me by Dr. Christopher Hobbs, who wrote the Essential Guide on Medicinal Mushrooms. He's a wonderful mycologist, an amazing herbal practitioner. And this is one that sometimes you hear Paul Stamets talk about it oh, this is one we need for homeland security because it's one of the only things we know that it's going to help us against anthrax and some of these certain pathogens. So it's one of those mushrooms I don't really go out there hey, everyone should start taking Agarikon. It's not reishi where it's oh, it's just going to boost your vitality. It's more for oh, I got that horrible nasty infection, that horrible virus that nothing else is going to cure. And it's also super bitter and acrid. It kind of sends a shiver down your spine, but man, if you need it, you really need it.
You'll be willing to take it.
Yeah, so I save it kind of for those special case scenarios, and it was gifted to me because I'm going to take the time to make it into medicine.
How would you do that? Just make tinctures or boil them down or eat them raw, or what are some of the ways that you would
consume that one?
Yeah, great question, because as you can see, it's
it's
hard as a piece. It's like a piece of wood. This thing is super heavy, you know. It's you could break a window with this thing. So yeah, it's not something you're going to be taking. You can actually just break a little piece off, and you can kind of get a little taste of it. And get that kind of acrid bitterness to it.
Right.
It actually has all 5 flavors, and it's sweet, it's acrid, it's bitter, a little bit sour too. You know, so it has a lot of flavors in it. But if I'm really going to be working with this one, my plan with this one anyways is to kind of cut it up, you know, saw it up. Probably going to have to use the table saw at this point because it's super solid. Throw it in the pressure cooker, you know, or the Instapot, whatever you got.
Yeah. Okay.
That's going to have to break down the cell walls because every single mushroom they have a chitin in their cell walls. So you know chitin, you know what chitin is? You know what other creatures?
No, I have no idea.
No, you know crabs?
Yes.
Yeah, like that. Their whole shells are made out of chitin.
Okay.
So it's so imagine this
exoskeleton.
Yeah, exactly. So you want to free up all that medicinal constituents, all the beta glucans, which are these carbon fibers, these carbohydrate fibers, and some of these bitter triterpenes and sequesterpenes. They're bound into this hard chitin crab shell material. So you want to hit it with high heat pressure cooker, free up that medicine, just being able to break up the cell wall. And then from there, you know, throw it in some kind of blender, get it down really fine, cook off all the water, blend it again, then you get yourself a nice mushroom powder extract.
Okay, great.
And that's really my favorite way, but you know, you can be as simple as
then you can just add that into a tea or into you know, other things you're consuming.
Exactly. And what I love about that method is you're not throwing anything away. You're consuming the entirety of the mushroom. But you could totally, if you just want to be at home, it's like I'll totally take some of this turkey tail, just throw it in a cup of boiling water, boil it for a couple hours and just drink the tea. It can be as simple or as complicated as you want to make it, but that's
what are the benefits to turkey tail?
Oh, turkey tail. Yeah, so we got turkey tail here, and you can see its Latin name is Trametes versicolor, and we can think versicolor because it has this whole versatility of colors going on. We have like blues, grays, blacks. This one's got like red, orange, yellow, brown. Like there's just like a huge diversity of colors. This one's even got some really nice orange stripes in there.
They really remind you of like rock formations when you look at like the strata of rocks. When you look at
yeah,
these.
Right.
It really reminds me of that.
And often when I'm working with mushrooms and plants, I like to think of, I work with a lot with astrological archetypes and stuff, so I like to kind of sit with the plant or the mushroom and see what it kind of gives off to me. And since this mushroom is just so like, it's got such a vibrancy of colors, very Venusian, like very much like Venus, because it's just very like showing up on its different colors, its different expressions. It's very like showy, and it's also like compared to like this one where it's just like a big hard chunk. This one's like, it's like a little more flexible, it's a little more malleable, it's got kind of more of that smoothness to it. So one of the traditional uses, it's been used in regular breast cancer treatment in Japan since the 1970s, so there's a ton of research going on for it. So they've given it in conjunction with chemotherapy, and they found that people who took turkey tail in conjunction with chemotherapy had, first off, like fewer side effects from the chemotherapy, less nausea, less like vomiting, less like kind of like just generally feeling like fatigued and crappy. And it actually improved their 5 to 10 year survival rate. So people who were taking it had like a lot longer survival rate afterwards. So turkey tail, I just see as a very gentle herb that's kind of able to go through and kind of, the way the constituents, they kind of work, and they activate different cytokines, different like cell signals. So it's kind of basically getting the body to start communicating with itself better. You can think about a lot of mushroom medicines kind of work that way. There's like, the body's not communicating with itself well enough. You're getting like lots of chronic inflammation. You're kind of getting like little cancerous polyps popping up here and there. You're getting sick every single cold and flu season. A lot of that has to do with your body. Your immune system's not communicating well with the rest of the body. So I think a lot of these mushroom medicines are really working through those pathways, and I feel like turkey tail is one of the best for.
Do you think for people who don't have access to forests and go mushrooming, like me, for example, I live in Florida, which.
Yeah.
And I live, in a more urban environment, so I don't have what are some good ways to find resources? Like, are there online? Are there places that you recommend? Or maybe you could give us some websites or places we could check out for people who are looking to find medicinal mushrooms
in their area. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
or
actually.
to order and be able to get them.
Yeah. So it's interesting, one of my main mushroom teachers was named Jay Schindler, who owned Fungi for the People, and he was from Detroit, Michigan, which we think is like super urbanized. But he said it was the place out of everywhere he's been, he lives in the Pacific Northwest, he's never seen more turkey tail than he did in Detroit, Michigan. I know some people in New York City, they go out a little bit outside of town and they're foraging for truffles, and they have like in apple orchards, and they have lots of turkey tail growing off in these apple orchards. So turkey tail is actually a super common mushroom.
So maybe people just need to get out and look a little harder.
Yeah.
Yeah, get out there, look a little harder.
Go find an orchard.
And there are good companies out there, but it's the thing with like a lot of medicinal mushrooms, like I don't
That's what I worry about. I'm not always sure who's providing it and where it's coming from.
Yeah, because a lot of stuff is like, they're not necessarily growing it, gathering. If you find a place and they're like, oh, we're going gathering wild harvested mushrooms and we're a small local company, like sometimes I do my stuff on Etsy just because you can actually, someone will go through and tell the whole story of like,
that's a
how
great
they went through it
and how you got
so that can be nice. But because sometimes people are growing it indoors, which is totally fine. They grow it on mycelium, on grain and stuff. But then oftentimes they're just using the grain of the mycelium. It might be like 90% rice or something like that, and then like 10% the mushroom, which could be all right. But
you're not getting that much benefit if it's mostly rice.
Yeah, and then you're like, oh, well, I'm going with this company because it's way cheaper, and it's like, well, what's that? What's the cost there? So
right.
Like I mentioned, Dr. Christopher Hobbs gifted me this mushroom, and I feel like his book, Medicinal Mushrooms, The Essential Guide, really lays out for the general consumer, like, things you need to consider, things you need to think about, and I think he even gives a few website listings. For myself, I make my own mushroom medicine, so if people want to see my stuff, I sell some stuff on my website on No Type Botanica, notibotanica.com. So,
And we're going to
yeah,
put all
and we'll
that
put
down
links
in the
into that.
description. So
Yeah.
we'll put all that information in the description so you can go and you can check all of that out too.
mhm.
And
Yeah.
what's this other mushroom you have there?
Oh, this is probably my favorite medicinal mushroom, and especially when we're talking about like accessibility. I just did a class at the Good Medicine Confluence, and I named the class "The Most Ubiquitous Medicinal Mushroom" because this is one.
This is it.
This is, yeah, they would call it the red-belted conk because we can see it's got this like little red band around each of these mushrooms here, and its Latin name is Fomitopsis pinicola. And so, interesting thing about this mushroom, this is a really unique specimen. Maybe some people have seen it before, but I mean, we've seen like mushrooms that grow kind of like a shelf off of a tree like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we think with this one, mushrooms, they kind of like, they grow with gravity. Like, you know, we think plants, they're phototropic, they're growing towards light, they're growing towards the sun. Mushrooms, they want to grow down with gravity, so their spores will kind of go towards the ground. So
I never knew
moving-
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they have gravitropism is what we call it. And so essentially this was growing on a tree that was a standing tree. And then at some point that tree fell over, boing.
Ah.
And you can think right here, like the mushroom's like, well, if I keep sporulating like this, and my spores are just kind of like, they're just going to dump here. I want to be facing like this. So it
starts little shelves.
exactly
Yeah.
it started making its own little children growing off of itself, or I guess it'd be like what do you call it, the conjoined fetuses?
Yeah,
You got,
okay,
like,
yeah,
like
really
growth.
good.
You got, yeah, you got your word growth growing off you. Yeah. So it kind of sealed itself off with resin here so it wouldn't rot, and then started making these other mushrooms. So these are kind of special
Wow.
ones to find in the
That's
woods.
really cool.
But-
Wow, I like this one.
Yeah, one of the most ubiquitous medicinal mushrooms, and it's pretty easy to identify due to that red ring. Not all of them will have that red ring on the edge.
And what kinds of things is this beneficial for?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked. So this is when we're talking about astrological archetypes. I really think of this one as very Martian. It
Okay.
kind of has like a lot of associations with Mars. Like first off, this bloody red
The
kind
red
of color.
color,
Rust
right?
color.
And one of the things you read about its traditional usage in a lot of Native American cultures was as a styptic. And styptics are things that staunch bleeding.
Right.
So you're like bleeding out, you're bleeding. You can get some of this mushroom that's powdered, throw it over the bleeding wound, and it's going to help to stop the bleeding, and it's also really potent antimicrobial.
Very cool.
Yeah.
That's really neat.
Using topical preparations of it too, it's really nice because you can rub it and it'll help to relax arthritic joints is one thing that's really nice on. Using on arthritic joints is really nice. It's nice and anti-inflammatory. But main indication for this one when I'm giving it to like an herbal client that I'm working with is for excess inflammation in the GI tract, poor digestion,
Oh,
excess
right.
inflammation in the GI tract. I think that's where this one really shines.
So do you put it in a powder or a tea?
Yeah, I often work with it in tea form where I make what we call a double extract, which is basically you make a tea of the mushroom and then you make a tincture of the mushroom and you combine the two fractions together. So a little like kitchen wizardry there.
Right, so you get a little bit of
both.
both
Yeah,
worlds.
yeah. Because a lot of the main
This
medicinal
tastes so
constituents
cool.
are a lot of carbohydrates, which store best in water, and also a lot of alcohol soluble things like terpenes, like triterpenes that extract best through alcohol. Yeah.
Very neat.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, these are just a few of the mushrooms that I know that you hunt and use in your work. But you also use a lot of medicinal plants in your work as well
Oh,
as
yeah.
just mushrooms. And I think you have a little garden patch down here with some plants.
Oh yeah. a
Maybe
lot
we
of
could
plants.
hop down to the garden and take a look at some of these other medicinal plants besides mushrooms
Yeah.
that you might want to use
Okey
to
doke.
do some of your magical and helpful things.
So tell us more about this plant.
Sure. So here we have Tropa belladonna. Common name's belladonna, but this is a really classic herb that we hear a lot about in a lot of traditional witchcraft systems. If you've heard of have you heard of flying ointments before?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so with a lot of our flying ointments, they were said that to be things that were traditionally applied as a cream, and they would kind of like induce this feeling of like, yeah, you were actually flying and you were able to like kind of astral project and things like that.
Euphoria.
Yeah, so this is a pretty interesting plant. So in a lot of ways, it's one I like to use in topical preparations to use on like the muscles, like we use for sore muscles. But it's one of those ones you have to really be careful with because it's kind of considered to be like a deliriant. So it actually causes someone to have like, you know, some people are like, oh yeah, mushrooms, they make you hallucinate, you know. Well, it's like they're kind of just distorting reality. This will actually make you hallucinate where you're talking to people who aren't there, doing things aren't there. You know, I had a friend who said that they used to sell it at the local health food stores back in the 1970s, and his buddy ate some, and he ended up on the power line, like, you know, dangling himself from his t-shirt, you know, just kind of.
So go easy with the ointment.
Yeah, go easy with the ointment. They call it a flying ointment for a reason, but it's hard to find something that works quite so well for muscle pain. It's really excellent used that way, and has some definitely divinatory capabilities as well.
All right, what is this interesting looking thing?
Oh, I'm glad you asked.
I think this is a plant I actually use quite a bit of.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised. So this is Artemisia argyei, or Chinese mugwort, but like there are a lot of different species of mugwort out there. We can notice from the name Artemisia, it's like from like Artemis, you know, the Greek goddess of the new moon. She was a warrior huntress goddess who voraciously protected her chastity and kind of had that association with the animals. So in this way, we kind of see mugwort being a really strong affinity towards the moon. So
Right.
one of a major use for it is actually as an enorigen, which means helps stimulate dreaming and enhance dreaming.
I know this is used a lot in moon magic, different aspects of moon magic. People use it a lot.
Right, or if you're into lucid dreaming practice,
Yes.
it's a really excellent herb to work with. And so one way to tell is it kind of has like, you know, the green leaves on the top, but then you look underside, it has this like white silveriness. And so there are different species out there. So the Chinese variety is used a lot in moxibustion, which is a Chinese thing where they get kind of like a cigar of like mugwort, and they hold it near like an acupressure point and stuff. And so it's kind of going to work on there and help to activate that kind of like moxibustion. But I use it a lot for, as a dreaming herb. You know, I'll even just like, and you don't even have to like consume the herb. It's better to just like burn some as incense, to
Right.
put it under the pillow, to even just like carry some with you.
I've used it a lot in like little pocket sachets that I make that I keep with me. You know, I might make them for different purposes, but then I'll carry it in my pocket or my purse and things. Or when I travel, I make them for different purposes. But
Right.
it's been something I've used a lot in sachet magic,
Yeah,
which I like.
And it's a lunar affinity as well, since we associate like the moon with the mother. It actually has an effect as a menagogue, which means it helps to stimulate menstruation. So if you have like stuck menses, you're like kind of like feeling like crampy, and you're just like kind of like trying to get your menses going. It's been like maybe your like usual cycles, like let's say it's like 29 days. Now all of a sudden it's been like 34 days. It may be something you might consider taking there.
All right, so everybody who's having a rough time with their period, you know what to do.
Yeah, it's something that's definitely worth
Well,
using.
it's nice to have some natural things you can do that can relieve just minor discomfort or everyday things that we go through. You know.
Yeah. As far as I know, there's no drugs that are menagogues. And when's the last time you went to your doctor? Like, hey, I'm not here, take this. Like, I just menstruated.
No,
you know,
my
so
period's great. Yeah.
they got plenty of synthetic hormones out there, but nothing to actually like stimulate menstruation for that in particular. So it's kind of cool use. I also use it a lot for poison oak. It mixes really well. I'll make like chop some up, put it into vinegar, and if I got like poison oak, that horrible rash, I've just seen you put it on the rash, and you'll start to like see the oils just kind of like oozing up to the surface and sucking the oils out. It's really astringent, so it kind of drying and kind of pulls out oils. Really warming too. Yeah.
All right, so then we have mugwort.
Mugwort.
And now here we are looking at one of my favorites, wormwood, which of course is used with absinthe. Can you tell us more about that?
Sure. So really interesting about wormwood is it's in the same genus as mugwort. So it's an Artemisia species. So this is actually Artemisia absinthium. So it's actually, the Latin name has absinthe in it. So it's interesting when we're...
smell it, actually.
Yeah, it's really pungent, really strong. And so it's kind of interesting when we look at, when somebody sees some of the magical properties that are written about wormwood. They talk about like, for like cleansing, for like purification, for keeping out bad energies and stuff. And, you know, I always like to think about like, the physical and the spiritual are kind of like, I don't like see like, oh, we have spiritual realms, I'm more spiritual, and I'm more like materialistic, more stuff. I think like spirit's infused into matter itself. And so when we actually look at some of the actual constituents and ways you work with wormwood, it's like you smell that, you're like, it's really pungent. And a lot of the uses for it, we call it wormwood because it cleanses worms from the gut. You know, you get like bad tapeworm, like, you know, helminths, all these different parasites in your belly. You essentially drink enough wormwood, it's going to make your belly such an inhospitable place for parasitic things to exist that they're going to kind of be expelled from the body. It can help to like stun these things. So then, but you know, we had traditionally, it was making wormwood, the green fairy drink. So this is one of the major ingredients used in that beverage. But it's just a really, really cool plant to grow, really prolific, and just
Smells really good.
Yeah, it does. All right.
Okay, Logan, what's this one?
Here we have lemon balm, Melissa officinalis.
Ooh,
So
that Melissa.
yeah, we gotta love her. So lemon balm is a really wonderful herb, and it's interesting because I teach a lot of adults, but I also teach children. And I was always told this thing, but it's only been in the past year I actually started working with kids. And like people always tell me like, oh, lemon balm, the herb of children. I'm kind of like, yeah, that's like when we say like, oh, it's a man's herb or a woman's herb. Like, herbs are for everyone, but man, I can tell you, every time I went on a plant walk, kids would go nuts for the lemon balm. Like, first time I ever showed it on a plant walk, the kids were like, can I have some? Can I take some home? And this poor lemon balm got ravaged.
The smell is so fabulous. I mean, just the scent of lemon is, you just broke off one little piece and I can smell it.
Yeah, right?
It's really pungent.
So the flavor, it's like the smell, the aroma is really wonderful. It's one that for adults, we find it's like kind of like uplifting. It feels nice, gently relaxing. For kids, it has more of a pronounced like relaxing effect, so it's a really excellent herb so when I'm giving a plant walk to a bunch of kids, really awesome to show them lemon balm right away, because if they're like really high energy kids,
happy.
Yeah, get them
just
calm,
like,
get them happy, and get them to be like, oh, I don't have to worry about, it's like a boring plant lecture. It's like, oh, now I get to smell something I like, and makes them calm down a little bit. So lemon balm's really wonderful, but it's one that's really excellent. I use it a lot for cases of heart palpitations, when someone's heart's just like beating really fast. It's really common in
tachycardia, things like that would be good.
Yeah, exactly. So it's really common in Graves' disease and hyperthyroidism to have like a fast racing heart. So I usually find like about 15 drops of a tincture is good enough. And I really associate it as being an herb of Jupiter. So we think about Jupiter, like even in its like physical sense, it's like this giant ball of gas. It's massive.
Right.
Every other planet could fit inside it, including our own. And it's just like represent that way. And that way it represents growth, abundance, joy. Jupiter grants wisdom. And I feel like lemon balm has a lot of those associations. It just brings joy, growth, abundance. And I think it does have that little like wisdom, even though it's like, and they also used to associate Jupiter in ancient times with children. So,
right, exactly. By the way, if you're interested in learning more about planetary magic, we actually have an episode on the 7 classical planets, and you might want to check that one out. I'll link it for you.
Yeah, I'll check that one out too.
All right.
Yeah, so in that way, we think like in ancient times, like having like abundant children was a sign of your wealth almost. If you were like seen as like in ancient times as infertile, it's like, well, who's going to work your land? Who's going to carry on your legacy?
Your name, your legacy. Yeah.
Yeah. So in that way, this herb of children was seen to grant one with abundance in children, abundance in family, fertility. Yeah. I wouldn't necessarily say it's like a fertility herb, but it's something that just grants like kind of like abundance and wisdom in that way. And it's just like a herb that's loved by children, and it kind of brings that joy. So, usually if I'm carrying a little lemon balm around me, I might carry around with me to give me like a little good luck. I think anything associated with Jupiter is just kind of like, you'd think of as like a good luck charm.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what can you tell us about this next flower?
Yeah, so here we have blue vervain. Its Latin name is Verbena hastata, and it's similar to lemon balm in that it's in the mint family. So a great way to distinguish the mint family plants is they have square stems, so I can feel a stem, and it's like rotating on a 90-degree axis in my fingers, and also has opposite leaves that go directly opposite each other versus alternating. So one thing you notice about blue vervain is like, let me just pick off one of these leaves, is you can kind of see it's like very tense looking leaf. It's very jagged and has like all these like serrated edges and looks kind of like a little bit tense. And when you feel the herb, it's like, it's got a little bit bristly hairs and kind of feels like a little bit on edge. Yeah, go ahead, feel it.
Oh yeah, check that out.
Yeah, so it's one of those herbs that's actually kind of one of what I like to call specific indications, which is this whole idea is that you can find like kind of a certain archetype that the plant works for a certain kind of type of person. So I say the blue vervain person, you hear different things, but a lot of things they say is like, oh, like a chronic list maker, someone who's like a little bit like hard on themselves or hard on others. They kind of have like a little bit of perfectionist bent, like things have to be like just a certain way for them to feel happy or relaxed. They tend to be like maybe like good editors, they're able to see like the flaws and things, but which can be a good thing, but also kind of like they're being too critical on themselves or others. It can be a thing. And not only that, but it's characterized by people who have those kind of personality traits, but then also hold tension in the neck and the shoulders.
Oh, okay.
So when we talk about it with certain herbs, they have herbal actions, certain effects. So we say with blue vervain, it's an antispasmodic So it's helping to relax spasms, relax tension and tightness. So people take blue vervain, they may notice like a relaxation in the muscles of the musculoskeletal systems bunch up and tight.
So for somebody with muscle pain or tension, this is really helpful.
Yeah, exactly. So helping to relax that muscle pain, that muscle tension, and also on a mental level, it's kind of relaxing and relieving that tension, helping to release. We call that a calming nervine. So a lot of great uses for blue vervain, but those are my main ones for musculoskeletal tension and pain. And you know, it'll work for everyone, but if you find the archetypal blue vervain person, astrologers think Virgo. If you meet like that kind of archetypal like Virgo person, or that kind of like tense perfectionist type with the neck and the shoulder, then you'll find like instantly shoulders drop, take a deep breath, and it may only take like one drop of the herb to cause it to happen. So one of my favorite herbs to have in my apothecary for that reason.
Very cool. Virgos, take note.
Good. Well, we hope you enjoyed taking a little tour around the garden, learning about medicinal plants, magical mushrooms, and all the wonders of nature and how we can use it to help improve our lives and our health. And we want to thank our very, very special guest, Logan Keister. And we're going to put his contact information down below. And if you have any questions, you can reach out and speak to him yourself. I bet he'll have a lot of answers for you. So thanks for sharing all your expertise with us today. That was really fun, and a lot of things that I use in my witchcraft practice all the time, I'm really learned a lot more about. I can use them even better now. So we're really glad you joined us today, and thank you so much for taking us on a tour of your garden.
Yeah, no, it was my pleasure. Y'all have been wonderful, great interviewers, and just got such an awesome background. It's awesome to see someone out there sharing this kind of information out there, because I feel like it's something that a lot of people need to have access to. So I really appreciate you all letting me share.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again.
And don't forget, in the words of Buddha, 1,000 candles can be lit from a single candle, and the life of the candle will not be shortened. Happiness never decreases by being shared. So thank you for sharing your time and attention with us here today at Meg's Magical Mansion.
Till next time, toodles.
Toodles!